Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new top 10 on this fine Friday evening, the evening of Christmas Eve no less. Now firstly I want to apologise that I've been unable to keep up with the daily top 10s like I originally promised. My workload recently has become so intense I was unable to keep on top of things, but we are returning to the daily top 10s in hopes of preparing for the penultimate conclusion of the series towards the end of January. Even if I don't get a top 10 out every single day, I will at least do so every other day, so you have plenty to look forward to, including this list I present before you today, because I am excited for this one. We are talking about the top 10 Skylanders cutscenes based on the impact the cutscene leaves on the entirety of the story, whether it's important and drives the story forwards. That will of course make it the more memorable. Tone is important, whether the cutscene is distinctive, that will again add to its memorability, a very important part of cutscenes. And just overall, if a cutscene gets you to feel emotions, that shows a strength in the connection you have with this world. It's those cutscenes that I'm looking forward to talk about the most, but it's not just emotion, there's also the fact that the cutscenes need to set up for next plot elements coming throughout the game quite well, and the cutscenes that are just better at fulfilling upon their purpose will rank more strongly in the list. But there's also an importance on the visuals, whether it maintains the aesthetic, whether it pushes that aesthetic, for more visually gorgeous ones we're obviously going to rank better, because I enjoy watching cutscenes, and the better the visuals, the better it is going to be for you to watch them, because it's such a visual based medium, these cutscenes. So yes, better looking for better overall, but that's just not the only important thing. There are several factors going into ranking list right here, which I just, ironically listed off. But enough of this has been said and done. As I said earlier, I'm really excited about this list, so let's roll the intro and get into it without further ado. For my number 10, I have a cutscene in here that you wouldn't necessarily expect. That is the Iron Jaw Gulch opening, purely because tonally, this is exactly what the perfect Skylanders cutscene would look like every time. Iron Jaw Gulch possesses just such strong character chemistry. Tessa and Flynn are just such a great pair, and here their chemistry and entertainment value are pumped to 11, and I love watching these two on screen. There's just such a sense of energy to this scene. It's fast paced, and the fact that Flynn causes the blowing up of an entire airship by simply accidentally letting go of a map, and then that map covers up a Greeble and he shifts the cannon back upon himself. It's both comedically perfect with some really great visual gags, as well as just so perfect for the character. It really plays into Flynn's whole stubborn, perfectionist type worldview, and Tessa is eating that up. She is so incredibly naive when it comes to Flynn and his lack of ability in doing these things despite what he would claim. It's just an excellent character dynamic. The execution here is perfect, the comedic tone is perfect for cartoony expressions and for interactions between these characters. At its heart, it is a cartoon, and again, that's what makes it so tonally perfect. But enough of repeating myself here. We're instead going to move on to number 9, which is the Imaginators opening. Now, firstly, this is very fast-paced. There's some pretty good action here. But secondly, there are the visuals. This cutscene is gorgeous, especially the lighting rig. It looks incredibly cool, and it even brings about kind of like meaning and eeriness to it when the Doomlander attacks, especially because there's just an ambience of the music. The colours shift from bright stuff like yellows and greens to more blues and purples, where it's darker. That's what really brings about the tension, you could say. So the visual storytelling here is excellent. It's perfect in execution because it really does establish the story quite well. In fact, all of Imaginator's story is pumped into this one cutscene. So I might hate the Imaginator's story, but I don't hate this cutscene for executing upon it with its perfections and its perfect pacing too. I'm going to say perfect a lot, and we're just at the 9th best cutscene. That just goes to show how great Skylanders cutscenes, such as for Tower of Time cutscenes, can be, because here we have two Flynns. And Flynn interacting with himself is such an excellent setup for entertainment. There is such an expressiveness and an energy seeing these two NPCs interact. Both of them, both think they have the greatest pilot in all of Skylanders. But instead of constantly overshadowing one another and claiming that they are the best Flynn and that any other version of Flynn isn't as awesome, instead they both kind of praise each other and both see themselves as the best pilot in Skylanders because they are themselves. I know I'm not explaining this all too particularly well, but case in point, it's the execution of these two interacting with one another, the lack of jealousy really, that makes it so fun to watch. Like, seriously, Flynn is a great NPC, one of Skylanders' best and most entertaining ones, so I have no problems having two of him. And that's where this cutscene truly shines. It sets things up and makes things possible that you don't normally see in Skylanders, so it's unique and memorable for those reasons as well. But moving on, we have the Superchargers opening. Now, what I love about this is the tone. It's darker and it really sets into place what's to come for the Supercharger storyline, because it is a darker and more mature game in style, in tone, in colours than all of the other Skylanders games, and you see that from this opening cutscene. There are a lot more darker colours, a lot more purples and blues. And the fact that Chaos is narrating it too, it adds a little bit of a comedic flair, but it's just so stylized, it's very unique. Again, there's no other Skylanders cutscene like it. Sure, it can be quite lazy at points using trailer footage, it could have done a lot more from that, but it's all well put together, all well edited. And again, I just love how perfectly it establishes what the tone of Superchargers is going to be, the more mature direction it's driving itself into, literally, because driving is a huge part of the game. So I love this cutscene and how well it sets up for the rest of the story, and it doesn't give you everything. Unlike Imaginators, there is still some mystery, still some excitement to be had for the game moving forward, still stuff for you to learn, at least story-wise. But coming up next, we have Giants versus Arkhians, because the action here is phenomenal. They could make an entire film around this, and I would have no problems with that whatsoever, because it just looks so cool. Not to mention, it really ties itself to each Giant's combat style very well. You have Swarm, who's able to fly in and lift T-Rex up, and then T-Rex is able to just one-shot the Giant after characters like Eyeball, Crusher, and Ingenie knock it off balance with their height and strength and projectileness. Either way, it plays itself to the Giant's strengths, which is very well choreographed and very well executed. The action is fun to watch, it's so well animated, and I love the sense of scale. The Giants feel powerful because they're fighting such huge beings, and they're standing toe-to-toe with an army of them, despite the fact that they are only 8. It's such a badass scene, and they actually win too. So that's what makes it all the more, dare I say, awe-inspiring. But next up is Core of Light Destroyed. Now, the very fact that the Skylanders lose in this cutscene is what makes them flawed. What makes you root for the Skylanders, because they're an underdog almost, brought about through this cutscene, which is adding to the mystery. It's answering your questions, because the opening for Spyro's Adventure, which we'll talk about later, it doesn't really give you much about the world, so getting to see how it became so rife with destruction after having seen that firsthand and getting that additional context, it just goes to show how structurally this is a perfect execution for the game story. Plus there is loads of action. Again, it's tailored towards the Skylanders' unique combat styles, and seeing characters team up too is great. Stump Smash is saved by Trigger Happy's efforts, and it's just so heartwarming to see a team of Skylanders. Their coordination is excellent, and they just truly feel like one huge unit. But again, it's just ultimately for Skylanders losing that kind of darker tone almost. It makes it more intense, and it's just so much more exciting. Plus you're filled with a little bit of dread, because you know the Skylanders are going to lose in the end and get sent to Earth, where nothing but, well, toys. It's incredible how this cutscene brings about the interaction with the player. How the player is a portal master, they must take the Skylanders who've been sent to our world, place them on a portal of power, so then that portal of power can transfer their life essence and their magic into the game. But now we move on to a very character-driven revelation within Superchargers. We're talking about the Sky Eater cutscenes, where Chaos has his inner conflict and where he ultimately betrays the darkness. It's such a great culmination of his arc leading to this point. Chaos doesn't want to destroy Skylanders, he wants to rule over it, and there's no way he can do so if it's destroyed. So instead, he stops the darkness in his literal tracks. Another racing pun for you right now. But yeah, just seeing that Chaos is more than just a mindless child that wants to take over Skyland simply because, well, he's a spoiled brat that wants it, and that there's more to his character and more to his mindset, and he actually cares about this world to a certain extent. You know, it's the world that he belongs to, he doesn't want to see it destroyed. So seeing all of that, it's just a really great way of characterizing him. It adds more layers, and ultimately it just makes you so invested in that arc that comes to such a satisfying end because of these cutscenes. But we move on to the number 3 bronze receiver, where Spyro's adventure, specifically its opening, comes into play. Boy, is this opening nostalgic. You have the iconic voiceover from Eon as we get to see the world of Skylands. The scale is huge, that's what makes it so perfect in execution. But ultimately, the main strengths for this cutscene lie in its nostalgia. It's the very first experience of Skylanders you're ever going to get, so naturally that makes it memorable. Naturally, that's going to put a smile on your face whenever you revisit it. There's just no way I can talk about a cutscene that has brought me such joy throughout my Skylanders career, shall I go as far to say. This cutscene is excellent. I wouldn't love Skylanders as much as I do to this day if not for this opening being so perfect in execution. It's an opening that still leaves enough mystery so you want to keep playing the game, you want to keep exploring this world. You've seen the scale, the scope, the creatures, and you want to know more about it. It's a world that instantly intrigues you, you are hooked, and the game never lets that attention go. It's truly brilliant. Not as brilliant, however, as our second cutscene, the runner-up being the Trap Team opening. Trap Team is my favourite game, and that's because it has such a strong start and never lets up. This cutscene is amazing, especially in terms of the action. Again, the Trap Masters have their own unique fighting styles, which is very cleverly incorporated into the action sequence. That's fun to watch. But just seeing Wildfire jump over all of the other Trap Masters and reflect Golden Queen's beam, it is badass. Then of course you have the crystallization of the Traptanium and how that's sent to Earth so you can trap the life essence of captured villains. It's just perfectly executed because it might be a long cutscene, but it could have rambled on and on. Instead they keep it concise into about just under 9 minutes, and so naturally you learn a lot in a small amount of time. It does a great job explaining Trap Team, setting it up. That's what makes its execution perfect. But again, it's just ultimately that action. You're filled with such a sense of awe, and you can't wait to be drawn into this world further. But none of that lives up to what's going to be my number 1 cutscene. Now, Superchargers is a very strong Skylanders game, especially for its story, because tonally it's a lot darker than all of the other Skylanders games, and with this cutscene it's made abundantly clear why. I love the Supercharger story, and that's because it has such emotion, such consequences, like Glumshank's sacrifice. Firstly, this is Chaos, who is sucking in the Academy, and there's no way they can escape without losing some of the cargo. So Glumshanks is willing even to release an island at the expense of himself. And Chaos, in the process, is, unknowing to him, sacrificing his own best friend, you could say. Glumshanks was the only person who's ever been there for him, and there is a bond there, even if Chaos fired him based on the manipulation of the darkness. Again, the setup that leads to this, the irony, it's rich in storytelling, and it gives you such a huge emotional juxtaposition, because you've just came from for Monstrous Isles, a level where you've been given such hope because you've finally been able to finish the Core of Light. You finally have the opportunities to save Skylanders from the wrath of the darkness, from Chaos's terrifying Sky Eater machine, and all of a sudden you're losing characters. It plays into the tone of Superchargers, and it's just so highly emotional and memorable because of the roller coaster you're sent on. That strong juxtaposition from the cheesy cartoonish jokes, and bam, it goes straight into Glumshank's sacrifice. It's so perfect for his character too. Again, it's a culmination of his arc going into it. It's just so structurally perfect. I know I've used that word a lot, but Glumshank's sacrifice truly is the most emotional, the greatest execution and greatest tone for a cutscene for Skylanders franchise has ever seen. Superchargers might not be the strongest Skylanders game, but it certainly does get things right in certain areas, and Cutscenes is one of those, as proven by Glumshank's sacrifice and how that cutscene is coming in at number 1. Now, with that all being said and done, this video is coming to an end, but before that happens, I first want to thank all my Blazing Knights and Scorpion Dragons whose support allow me to continue pumping out quality videos like this one. Without them, this all wouldn't be possible. Therefore, I genuinely appreciate every last one of you from the bottom of my heart. If you enjoyed this video, I have others you can watch by clicking on screen now, and you can even subscribe by pressing the button on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one, but until that moment arises, peace!